All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. It is a little rainy Monday here in the Wilmington area, but I am so excited to be part of this interview today. Our author that's coming up today is somebody that I've known for a while. We went to school together in Charlotte at Johnson and Wales. She's always been somebody that's easy to talk to, always genuine. You're always going to get the best from her. Miss Ashley Rouse, welcome to Author Your Story episode 2.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Just getting some information out there to the fans and the people who are going to be listening to this. So you graduated from Johnson and Wales, which is a career university they call it. We know it as a culinary school in some circles. But you spent 10 years running your own multi-million-dollar jam company as an entrepreneur. Lived everywhere, from born in Chicago, lived in Indianapolis, lived in New York, now reside in Atlanta. Um, just tell the people a little bit about who you are before we dive into the deep stuff.
Who am I? I mean, nobody asks who you are. It's like, what do you do?
No, I
Who
want to
am
know who
I?
you are. Who are you?
Who am I? I am a driven entrepreneur. I'm a mom. I love being a mom. It's one of my favorite things to do, to be. I'm a wife. Also, one of my favorite things to be. Um, and yeah, I'm a kingdom driven entrepreneur. I like to say that, not just an entrepreneur, but really an entrepreneur focused on the right things. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'm gonna start a little bit before I knew you because that's the mystery part going forward as we push this needle. So when you were in high school, was culinary school, was the hospitality industry something you always wanted to do? Did you kind of fall into it? Well, how did that happen before the needle started moving towards what you're in now?
Yeah, absolutely not. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I feel like everybody I knew what they wanted to do. Although now that I'm an adult looking back, it's like you didn't know, but everyone around me seemed to know the direction they wanted to go in. I had no idea. But I watched a lot of the Food Network. I cooked a lot at home and I enjoyed it. And when I found out culinary school was a thing, I was like, that sounds fun. Sounds more fun than, I don't know, business school or something. So yeah, I was like, let's give it a try.
Now, your experience at Johnson and Wales, was it what you thought it was going to be? Was it more? Did it open your eyes to some things that you didn't know were there?
Yeah, I feel like it was fun. It was a fun experience. I don't think I had many expectations. I didn't know anything about professionally learning how to cook. So I didn't have many expectations. I just went into it open. I loved it. It was a good time. Now I will say working in that field was totally different, right? Like actually being in the back of the house and working. Now that was, am I allowed to cuss on here?
You can cuss
It
on
was
here.
a
We are
shit show.
unedited. We are unedited. Let's make this
Okay.
thing happen. Be you. That's why I asked who you are. Who you
I
be you.
mean, that was a shit show. I feel like the many years I spent in the actual restaurant industry, in school and then after school, it was a lot. I think that was a very challenging time. At the time, I was having fun. I was in it. I was working late nights and staying up and hanging out with restaurant industry people after work and just like a fast-paced life, and I was just kind of in it. But I think over time and looking back, it was a really hard time. I worked every single night, every single weekend, every holiday, and watched my friends enjoy themselves at these restaurants I worked at. So I think that was hard. Also, it was very much a man's industry, so I was always one of the few women in those kitchens and hotel kitchens and restaurant kitchens, and that was always a challenge. I think the way you're talked to, you're belittled half of the time. Sometimes you're harassed, sexually harassed, but I think at the time I didn't really know what that was. So I was always being hit on, and I just didn't really know what that was. Like now that there's the Me Too movement and all these things, I'm like, oh my God, the things people said to me. But,
Right.
you know, I mean, it was fun. It was just, it was long hours, you know, 12 to 16-hour shifts on your feet. So school was fun. But I think the industry was just really tough. My husband always has like cousins and stuff who want to go into culinary, and he's like, "Can they talk to you?" And I'm like, "Oh, they can, but I'm going to be very honest
Honest,
and
yes.
transparent and blunt about things, and my goal is not to deter them from it. It's an awesome industry, and what you can do with it is like crazy and so creative and so fun. But I am gonna, you know, let them know what they may have to go through to kind of get to that path.
Okay. Well, you stole one of my questions, so I'm gonna ask it anyway in your response.
Okay.
But do you think, because I'm from that industry, managed in the restaurant industry for 20 plus
Yeah.
years, I was
Yeah.
a front of the house guy, but I love my back of the house people. There's no way you survive in a restaurant without a consistent love between front and back. Whenever you work in a place where the back is against the front and vice versa, I agree. It's a shit show. Like that, nothing
Yeah.
gets done. But do
Yeah.
you think those hardening experiences, the dealing with the tough days, the long nights, enabled you to be prepared mentally to be an entrepreneur like you were, or was that
Oh
a
my God.
different?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Like I would never change it. I would never
Okay,
change it.
awesome.
Like learning how to navigate tough situations is the best thing you can do. Like we're literally looking at our 3 and 4 year old, and my husband's like, we got to switch up the way we're doing things because they are so privileged and spoiled already. And like they're small, right? So you take it with a grain of salt, but it's like they have, or even his nephew who's like 18, same type of thing. And it's like he hasn't seen adversity, and like he's wonderful and he's smart and he's genuine, but like, where's the adversity? Like, what's going to happen when he goes to college and like some bad shit happens? Like, you know what I mean? So, no, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change like because okay, here's a perfect example. Running Trade Street, my jam company, I mean, for years and years before we became, you know, a thing, like people were talking to me crazy. Men were talking to me crazy. White men were talking to me crazy. Like I'm asking for money and they're like, they're looking at me like, but you're black and you're young and you're a woman. Like, what do you know? But it wasn't new. Like I'm used to being looked at that way. You don't understand my capabilities. That's fine. I know what I look like on the exterior. So, but I'm used to that. And the same thing happened in the kitchen over years. I was an excellent chef and I had an excellent work ethic. And so when people would look at me that way, it was like, that's fine. Let's just get into it. Like let's get into it. And every time they were like impressed by me. But, you have to kind of like break down that exterior. So yeah, I wouldn't change the hard times for anything.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, I've known you since the classroom days, and you've always been able to stand up for yourself in both personality, in aura, and in verbiage. So that makes
Mm.
a ton of sense. So you get out of color, you get out of Johnson and Wells, and most people want to have their own restaurant, right? That's everybody's when everybody does their end of year project, they want to have their own spot, they want to do this. Why jams? Like what out of all the things that happened in our field, what happened that you were like, you know what, I'm gonna attack this jam thing with the passion that I attack everything else.
Yeah, I think there was a lot that happened in between then. It wasn't, so cut and dry where it's like, I don't want to do this, but I do want to do jam. It wasn't like that. I knew 100% I didn't want to own a restaurant. Um, I look at people crazy when they want to own restaurants. They're awful.
It's tough. It's
It's
tough.
so tough.
It's
But
tough.
but to each his own, right? Like there are wonderful, successful restaurant owners, but it just I worked in the I worked in the restaurants and I was like, I don't want to own this. I don't want to own this. I don't want to cook here, but I also don't want to own this. Like I want to do something different. There was definitely a period of time where I felt really um just like disappointed by what the industry was offering as a chef, and then confused by why did I take this path? Like, is this what I really want to do? And I remember my mom bought me this book. It was like 100 Careers in Culinary Arts or something like that. I'll never forget it because I read it and I mean, I was like, like mind blown. It was like you can do food journalism, like these things I had never heard of before. So I was kind of renewed because food has always been my passion for as long as I can remember and always will be. But I didn't want to work in kitchens. So that book just really kind of opened my mind. And I think subconsciously started like planting seeds. I actually, at the same time that I was cooking, I was running this like clothing business, Urban Mondays at the time. And that was my first like entrepreneurial experience. We did like custom alterations and people would like send us their jeans and we'd trick them out and distress them and all that. And it was really fun, but I really learned how to run a business. And so I think when the jam came along, I was also doing like a food blog. I was like young. I was just doing all these different things. And I had this food blog called I Speak Kitchenese. And I really loved canning and preserving. Like I would go to farmers markets and I would like get a bunch of fruit and vegetables and I would can them and I would make the fruit in a jam. And so I'm running this clothing business, but I'm doing this like food blog on the side. And I just really enjoyed making jam. We would have like food swaps. People would come over to my mom's house and bring food and we'd swap it. And, again, food's my passion, right? So I'm doing the food still. And then fast forward to I moved with my husband out to Stamford, Connecticut, and we were like going to Brooklyn all the time, like to hang out and eventually for work, and going to Manhattan. And I was really inspired by the maker culture, like the out there, like the artistry, the makers. It's a thing, right? People make things with their hands and they sell them and they build businesses from it, and it's so thriving and vibrant there. So I was still doing Urban Mondays once when we moved. And I was like, I really like doing these jams though. I should like sell these. I should sell these at like these markets. I should sell them on Etsy. I should sell them online. I really want to do the jam. And so I started selling the jams. And I was doing both businesses. And then I read something online from an entrepreneur that was like, one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made was trying to run two businesses at once. And I felt like he was speaking to me directly. So I shut down Urban Mondays and kept selling the jam.
Okay.
The rest is
The
history.
rest is
I know
history.
it's a long story and it's
Oh,
kind of like all over, but that's
but
kind of how it happened.
it's a great story. I mean, not many people say they can stamp a decade on anything other than just living, right? I live
Mhm.
to be 10 years
Yeah.
old. I live to be 20 years old. That's a decade.
Yeah.
But to dedicate yourself, especially in something like entrepreneurship for 10 years, that's, I mean, that's remarkable, right? Not many people get
Yeah.
that part of the story. Um,
I have to remind myself that all the time.
well, yeah, I
All
mean,
the time.
sometimes we're so focused as people on the result that we never ever appreciate the journey, that we survived the journey. We woke up from the tough day, no matter how hard a day is. If you had a horrible Monday, the fact that you got up on Tuesday is the blessing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But so many times we focus on, man, I had the worst Monday ever. But you're standing in Tuesday now. And no, it's not going to fix
Yeah.
the fact that Monday was bad. Not going to,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if
Right.
you don't have that kind of keep going mentality, the needle has moved forward. They say slow progression is still progression.
Right.
If we
Amen.
don't, embrace the progression, then like what are we really doing? One thing in doing my research on some of your videos, and just me knowing you like I do, you've been a really big advocate for mental health for entrepreneurs as they own their own business. At what point during your jam journey, I just made that up, sorry,
No,
during
it's
your
great.
jam journey, did mental health start to become something that you wanted to talk about openly and focus on?
Oof, honey. It it was in 2023. Um, so just prefacing, entrepreneurship is hard, right? It's hard. It's going to wear on you in so many ways. So it always wore on me. It was always stressful. But you are also taught that like you take it because it's like this is the journey you chose and like it's going to be hard. It's also rewarding. So like this is just part of it. And so many years that's what I did. Um, but when I started the process of shutting down my company, right? So I shut down Trade Street at the end of 2023. And it was like one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. But when I kind of knew that things were going downhill and that shutting down was a possibility, my mental health just went out the window. And it was something I've never ever been through before in my life. I'm a very happy person. I'm a very blessed person. I live a really good life. I've never had a reason to be, you know, down and out about anything for any extended amount of time. But in 2023, when this all started, this process of shutting the company down, and it was really a process of struggle that led to shutting the company down, I started to get so stressed and anxious um, in a way that I had just never felt before. I couldn't, it started with I couldn't sit at the computer and like do work. I couldn't do work. I couldn't do emails. And I was like, you've been here before. Like you're having a bad day, having a bad week, having a bad month. Like, it just continued on. But it got to a point where I couldn't answer emails. Like I'd like sit down and I'd be like, okay, let's get to these emails. And I'd open my computer and I'd like, my heart would start racing really fast. I would just like freeze. I mean, like things that I've never experienced before, like anxiety attacks, mini panic attacks. And I was just like, what is happening? Like, girl, get it together. Like, I know you're annoyed with this business, but like, get it together. It turned into the days and weeks and months turned into um, not being able to talk about it at all without bursting into tears. It turned into severe sadness. It turned into hours spent on the couch during the day. It was bad. It was bad. I went through a period of depression. I just have never I don't even use that word. It was so hard to even, like, say out loud, like, "Are you depressed?" Like, I started Googling things, like, because I was just like, "What is depression?" Like, who does that looks like your life is awful and you're in a corner, like, and you can't get. So anyways, it really was a really, really tough time. I'd show up in the morning for my kids, get them dressed for daycare, with a smile on my face, send them out the door with my husband, and then lay on the couch for 3, 4, 5 hours sleeping. Um, it wa it was bad, and it got to a point where eventually, I created this All Founders Need Therapy kind of movement, and it was a fundraiser to raise money because I was trying to save the business, but it really became about mental health because I just had never seen myself that way, and I really realized, like, you think you're the only person that is dealing with this? Like, maybe the people that are close to you that are probably, dealing, um I shared a lot online about it, a lot on Instagram, and people would reach out. People I know, like who I know closely, were like, "Oh, you should get on this medication. I've been on it for years. Like you should try this. Like you should try." And I'm like, "Holy shit. Everyone's depressed, I guess." Like, but I had I'm like, "No, it's not true, but everyone is dealing with it." And you have no idea. They're smiling on social with their kids in a story at the park, but like you don't know what they're going through, and I just really resonated with that, and I felt the need to kind of be really transparent about it, in efforts to help people share my testimony, have my form of therapy. Yeah.
Well, that part of your story is the premise for why this was created. So a lot of times, a lot of podcasts that we watch and enjoy, and they are entertainment, um, they're niche based. Like they have one topic that they want to talk about, and they bring people on who fit that topic. I wanted to create a platform where a quote unquote regular person can become a celebrity for somebody else. And when I say celebrity,
Mm,
I mean
come
your
on.
your story resonates with me. Just like you said, hey, I didn't even I didn't even know I wasn't alone on this boat. Sometimes the boat got so many passengers on it, it's a cruise ship, and you have no clue. You think you
Come
walking around,
on.
you think you're on this small little canoe by
Yeah,
yourself. All
yeah,
these waters are raging around you. I'm the only one dealing with this. And then
yeah.
a cruise ship passes by you. You're like, who are these people on the boat? Oh, we dealing with
Yeah,
the
this
same
is
thing
just
you're dealing with.
spillover. This is spill
You
like,
should, you should have jumped
you
on the
know,
boat with us.
if
But
I hadn't shared on Instagram, I wouldn't ever have learned that there's a cruise ship of people like that. You know, I thought I was on this little island, like by myself. And by sharing, it was so fulfilling to see like people be like, me too, sis, me too.
But that I think that's because, and I talk about this with some of my friends all the time, vulnerability isn't something you are taught as a child. You have to run
Mm,
into it as an adult.
mm,
So it's one of those few emotions that when it hits you as an adult, you have zero clue how to deal with it or to champion it, right? Because if
yeah,
you fall down as a child, your mom or dad's like, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, dust yourself off. Let's keep going forward. It's
yeah.
never, hey, go to the corner, cry for 5, 6 minutes, then
Yeah,
come back,
yes,
right? So
right?
then when life pushes you down,
Yeah.
when life hits you in the chest, and you like, man, like what do I do? You fall into a deep space. You fall into a space of feeling like you're by yourself. But it's too many. And then when you think about the
Mm,
logic of it, it's funny. You giggle at it because there's too many people on planet Earth for you to ever be going through something by yourself. There's always
ever,
somebody
ever.
who understands,
You didn't
right?
create anything. Like you didn't create like your sadness around your business or
No.
your like feelings about, you know. I mean, it's true, and I a lot of the way I am is just innate. Like that's how I've been since I can remember. I've always been really honest and really blunt, and really transparent because it feels good to me. It feels good to just be really honest. Like I know it sounds weird, but like if I'm not feeling good and you're like, you come over here and you sit on my couch and you're like, how are you doing? It does not feel good for me to be like, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm good. Like that it like I'm like boiling on the inside. It's building, 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 and until I have like word vomit. Like it feels good to be like, you know, adulting sucks and I'm going through some things, but how are you? You like it that even just that sentence. And I encourage people to do that. You know, it's not about like telling your business. Like even that sentence is not telling your business. Like that sentence is, but it's like getting a little bit off your chest. And then if you want to go further, go further. But if not, you weren't lying about what's happening with you. And I saw a lot of people, I started realizing a lot of friends on like social were like storing little memes about like sadness and depression and like adulting's really hard and like blah, blah, blah. But like I started to really like open my eyes. I was like, oh my God, you're going through something. You're just you don't want to share it. So you're like making a joke about it, but you're going through some things. So like I'm like starting to check on more people, you know, off social, like texting people like, hey. And I'm like, oh my God, people are going through shit. Like
Yeah.
people, you know what I mean? And so yeah, it just taught me a lot. I do encourage people to just be transparent. I also a lot of people were like, "Thank you so much for being this open and honest." And I got so many thank yous that I was like, because again, it's innate. So I'm like, "Why are you thanking me? Like this has nothing to do with you. I do this for me." Like, but it's my therapy, you know. But I realized that like a lot of people look at that as a bold just a bold move, and they really kind of admire that. So I was grateful that that was part of it, an outcome, and something. And I realized too that people don't do that. People aren't comfortable with sharing, um, and I'm like, you don't have to do it on social, but you got to share with somebody. You got to do something, you know.
Yeah, it's a different. That's a great point that you made. I was just having this conversation the other day. It's different when you hear it. Like when you tell somebody what you're going through, it's different when that sound hits the ear. And to
What?
agree with you that the truth is the most efficient form of communication. Whether you
Mm,
believe it or not, I only got to tell the truth one time. So if you ask me how I'm doing and I'm
right.
not doing okay, I'm saying it once.
I'm saying it.
All my actions will reflect what I just told you, but it's so tiring internally to tell
Oh,
you I'm one thing and then
oh,
be different. Like that's a different fatigue. We talk about fatigue all the time.
oh.
We talk about mental fatigue, we talk about physical fatigue, but you don't ever talk about spiritual fatigue. And the
Mm-hmm.
spirit is so
Yeah.
tired from having to balance two different feelings
Mm,
all
mm.
day long that it's
Ooh.
um
That's how I felt. I was so tired. I mean, I was so tired.
right,
So I was like, the last thing I have energy to do is like not tell you the truth in this moment because
right,
I don't have the energy to like lie. All I can do is like spit out what's happening, you know?
right. So we come out of we've championed the jam moment. We fought through some tough times. We've pulled ourselves out of the darkness into the light. And now we have a new company, a new baby that we're nurturing. Tell us about the new baby that you have going on. And
Yeah, so
how did you get there? What was that decision like?
well, it's a story. I don't
Okay.
know if you have time, but it's a
Okay.
story. But so I definitely did not close Trade Street and say to myself, let's open another business. Like, absolutely not. The things I said to myself were more along the lines of, what the fuck are you gonna do? Because you've done this for 10 years. What are you gonna do now? You're gonna go back to work? What does that mean? What does that look like for you? You are an entrepreneur to your core. You're gonna go work for somebody, you have hours you're gonna go to an office? Like what?
Mm.
So that's more of the way I was talking to myself at the time. Um, and praying and just trying to figure things out. So it's funny, someone used this term, a couple people use the term that I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I love it so much because I would never say that about myself. But I guess I am now. I, you know, like I said, I didn't want to do another business. And I knew that, but I think what I'm doing now is different because it's a service-based business, right? And I didn't think of that. All I could think of was like another business, another product, and the CPG industry is really hard to have a product, to have something you have to have inventory for and where are you storing it and the money in inventory. So I think when I was thinking another business, that's all I was like one track minded and just thinking that. But having a consulting business, a service business is very different. And um, the idea of it sounded easy. Nothing's easy, but coming out of that, baby, this seemed easy. So, anyways, the way it came about was I was just praying and crying to my mom a lot about what am I going to do and planning to try to maybe go find a job, which I was spiraling my depression even worse. And my husband had to go to Arizona for a work trip. And it was around the time of my birthday. So I was like, oh, I'll go make it a little birthday trip. And I went out there, and my cousin, who I'm very close to, who is like my creative muse and spirit animal for life, was there. And she lives in Chicago, but she happened to be in Arizona the same time I was there. So I was like, this is
Oh,
weird. I guess I'll go see you. So she's like, so I'm like, oh yeah, you should come to the hotel or whatever. And she's like, no, you got to come out here where I am. It was like super far. I'm like, I'm not coming. I'm not coming. I'll see you in Chicago. Like I'll see you sometime. Like, and she's like, my husband's like, you should try to go. I'm like, oh, fine, maybe I'll Uber. I look at the Uber, it's so expensive. I'm like, I'm still not coming. I'm not going out there to see you. And
welcome back,
so
Alice. Thank you for that small delay. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. We were talking about the new business venture that Miss Ashley Rouse is going into now. You can go ahead and continue what got you there.
yeah, so I was going to see my cousin. Didn't want to go. My husband was like, "Well, I got to rent a car, like from work. You can use that." So all directions were pointing in to go see my cousin, even though I did not want to go. And I ended up going to see her and just having this like wonderful, long spiritual conversation, just kind of pouring my heart out. I told you she's like my creative muse, so I basically was like, "Tell me what to do." And she's like, I don't have the answers, but I'm like, no, give me something because I am struggling. Like I have no clue what I'm going to do with my life after this. Um, and we just had this really long conversation. She really poured into me, and it was great. I felt really good after that, and still didn't have the answers. But drove back to the hotel, and something was just like, open your computer, and I opened my computer, and I kid you not, I built a website in a few hours and started a business, built a logo, and started a company. When I tell you, like, baby, God put this on my heart, I had no idea of what, like, God did this. It was like my body shut down, like some sort of AI, and just like came back, and it was just God. And I just like built, like, and then I came to and was like, what the hell is this? But just like had this idea of like, why don't you use your knowledge and all the things you've gained over the years and continue to share? Because one of my things, that's kind of my purpose, being a kingdom driven entrepreneur, being this person who I am as a CEO, my purpose has always been to kind of share with the community, help the community in any way. And when I say community, specifically Black women owned business entrepreneurs, but anybody who wants the knowledge. So I really was sad about not being able to do that anymore. And so I really was like, wow, what if I just consult and offer my services to the same community, but in a different way? Before it was just advice and, me kind of giving my testimony. Now it's in the form of services. So I built this website, I built this logo, I came up with this name, like literally just all in one evening. And my husband came back to the room after working in the evening, and I'm like, look at this like brand I just built. And then I spent the next we flew home, and I spent the next like week building this brand, like, getting all the things you need to get set up when you start a business, the business structure and all the paperwork and everything you need. And I started the company. And after that, I got on like Upwork and started reaching out to people, putting out inquiries and and got on social and telling people like, this is what I'm doing. I was nervous about it because I was like, are people going to be like, but you do Trade Street? Like, what do you mean you consult on these other things? But I didn't care. Like, this is what I do. And I have this very strong belief in myself. So, um, I just wasn't hearing that noise. I was not even allowing my head to kind of go that way. I was just like, this is what you're doing. So make sure you tell your network so they can like buy into it. So I shared it with people. And I started getting people reaching out. Like people were like, we've followed Trade Tree for years. We love everything you do. I'm a small business. I would be honored for you to help work on my branding or my packaging or my website. So the business started coming in, and I mean, pretty much the rest is history. I also do interior design, which is another passion project. So I'm like, how can I put that underneath this kind of umbrella? So I'm like, this is a creative agency. It's a creative agency that provides creative services. One of them is virtual and in-person interior design services. And kind of the other facet is brand and small business services. So web design, marketing, social media templates, brand guidelines, things like that. I mean, that's literally what happened. And I've just been kind of like riding that wave and growing that business.
Okay, and what's the name of this venture so we can get it out there for the people to
Yeah. So this
remember?
is Rouse Like House.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, Rouse Like House came from it's funny, my now husband, Don Rouse, I've been with him 16 or 17 years. I've never heard anybody say his name incorrectly ever. And it's funny because he's like, are you kidding me? Since I was a kid, they said my name wrong. And I'm like, I've never heard it before. Sometimes I am living my own world. I don't hear things, but it's like as soon as I get married and take his last name, people call me Ashley Roos all the time, and it wears me out because it very much looks like Rouse on paper to me. It's not French. There's no double S. Like I don't understand it, but people call me Ashley Roos. And so for some reason, when I was trying to think of a name, I mean, immediately Rouse Like House came to my head because I was just like, it's funny, it's witty, it flows. Um, Also why I know God kind of created this because everything was just flowing out of me very quickly. Yep, that's the name. Boom, this is the logo. Yep, this is the website. Like usually these things would take me,
Right.
weeks. Um, but yes, so I built Rouse Like House. It's a creative agency. And like I said, we do brand and small business work, and I also do interior design. Been doing that for years and years, in not in a professional manner, just kind of like for friends and family. And I'm like, why am I not doing this? Um, in a real kind of sense of the word. So yeah, I started this, and another funny thing is like within a couple months of me starting and putting together a portfolio and putting the interior design on the website and kind of sharing it with people, I ended up doing this interior design project for a Cleveland Cavalier player that lives out here. And again, like I think as you go through your journey, there's just it depends. I mean, I don't know, everyone's not faithful, right? But if you believe in God, like if you pray for these things and you ask to be put in the right direction, certain things just come together in a way that you know that you're on the right path and you know that this was God led or God driven, right? And that's what happened a lot with Trade Street. Things just kind of fell together so well in so many ways that I knew that it was my purpose and I was on the right path. And with Rouse like House, anytime I'm like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, I'm not making any money this month. Am I supposed to go back to work? Like something happens and I'm just like, he just sent you to this rich ass neighborhood to like design it, and you're not even like this acclaimed designer for with 20 years of experience. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started and where I'm at now.
Okay, now that you're in this new venture and you did 10 years in a different venture, but still under the entrepreneur umbrella, are you doing anything differently now as an entrepreneur that you didn't do before? Or, vice versa? Like there was something that, you did do back then. You're just like, I'm not going to do this again.
I would probably say that the biggest difference is me. I think I'm just different. I think I have scars, I have learnings, I have age, and all this wisdom. So honestly, it's just me that's different, So I can, because of that, I can approach things differently. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say there's any specific things. Like, of course, like if I'm launching a new product, I think about that, right? Because for years I launched new products and that's a whole ordeal. And sometimes they sell, sometimes they don't. And so of course I think of that stuff, but like I said, I'm the biggest difference. I am an entirely different person now than when I started Trade Street Jam Company. And especially after, having this year of these this depression and this stress and this anxiety, um, I'm just approaching things a little bit different. I'm so grateful to be so far away from that year. You know what I mean? Like it was so bad and so unlike me that I couldn't recognize myself. And in the time you're like, when will this end? And it's very funny because when I tell you it started around January 2023 and it ended around December 2023. When I tell you God was like, this is 1 year that I need you to go over here and go through this. When this is over, it will be over. And January 2024, I started a company. And here we are, January 2025, and I am growing this company and I just God is just so good. He just positioned me in this, even last year when I was doing it and I was like, this is all great, but like I need to make real money. Like I need a salary. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. And I'm like, if you could just make like $50,000, like just like $50,000, that's enough, like with your husband to like run your household. And I'm like, how are you gonna do that? And so I was like making money each month, but I wasn't really tracking it. So I asked my husband, I'm like, can you put together a spreadsheet for me? I can do it, but he's better at it and quicker at it. So I'm like, you put me together a nice spreadsheet where I can track what I'm making each month and really see like what I done. I didn't ask him this until like October. But I was like, I wrote it down in my phone in a note, but like make me a spreadsheet and I can put it all down and see it nicely. And he did, and I put everything I made for the year. And this was in October. And when I tell you it was like $49,000. And I had asked God for 50. Come,
Come on now.
come
Come on
on.
now.
But
You
also,
playing.
why didn't I ask for 200 though?
Hey, because I mean, you have a modest mind, which is okay. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
modest mind. Like, I work
But
in the
that's how I
restaurant.
knew it was him.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It happens that way. Sometimes you get exactly what you ask for. Um,
Yeah.
and the crazy part is that we always talk about glass half empty or glass half full. But I tell people sometimes you just gotta be appreciative that you have a glass in the first place. Like, are
Ooh,
you holding a glass
are
during
you holding a glass?
are you holding the glass? Like, it doesn't matter how much is
Right.
in it. Are you part of the toast? Because there are people who aren't
Right.
part of the toast at all,
Hmm.
whether the glass is half empty or it's half full.
Yeah.
But talking to you has unlocked a question that I never knew it was around. But I'm gonna ask it because it just kind of hit me. So the show is called Author Your Story. And I'm always of the adage that if somebody's going to tell your story, it needs to be you. Okay. It shouldn't be somebody else. No matter how much they love you, they care, how long they've known you, it's still told from their eyes. And I would much rather you tell it from your eyes. But the phrase is that you can't judge a book by its cover, right? But if you turn the book over, it'll tell you what that son bitch is about. That's what I tell people. So if I was to grab Ashley Rouse's book off the shelf and I see the cover and I turn it over, what does the back of the book say that makes me want to read this story?
What? What? You have to like ask me that like a week in advance and let me like
Nah,
come
it's,
up
it's
with
a lot. It's a
something.
lot better when you're standing. It's genuine when you're standing in it.
What
And we
would the
got
back
six.
of the book say?
What does the back of the book
Hmm.
say?
It says, it says, entrepreneurship is hard, adulting is hard, life is fucking hard. Let me help you navigate the seasons and the chapters. I won't make them easier, but I will make them smoother by telling you what I went through.
And who doesn't want to read that book? Just in that one moment, like who doesn't want to read that book? I mean, the craziest part about life is that everything we do is a coin. And there's one side, there's two sides to every coin. For love, there's heartbreak. For happiness, there's sadness. For
Yeah,
success, there's disappointment. We are so afraid of the other side of the coin that we stop attacking life because the other side of the coin might present itself.
oh
But it
yeah,
might only present itself for a
oh
small
yeah,
window. Just like you said, you went through it for an entire 12-month window, right? Nobody told you you were going to go through it, but you're sitting here today talking about how you went through it. It didn't end you.
yeah.
It didn't break
Mm-mm.
you. When you sit on your rocking chair on your porch and you drinking your
Yeah,
drink, right? And you talk about
yeah,
that 2023 chapter, that's it. It's just a chapter. When you
that's it.
when your daughters are going through hardship as becoming adults and they think mom is perfect because kids carry that weight, right?
Yeah,
Hey, sit down real quick. Let me make you a Manhattan, and we're gonna talk about how
yeah,
mom isn't perfect. Like mom went through some dark times. Like this is what I went through to get to where I'm at. I know it's in you because I've seen the story. I was the story at one time. So yeah,
yeah.
that back of the book is perfect.
You know,
I,
someone told me one time, they said, um, never be jealous of anyone in their winning season without knowing what they lost in their losing season. And it stuck with me because, oh my God, I spent so much time like on, fucking Instagram, whatever. Like just like looking at these other businesses, like why are they successful? Why does that, woman look like she's a wonderful mother and running this company so well? Why is someone making this kind of money? Like all these things. And someone said that, and I was just, I mean, when I tell you it hit me like a ton of bricks, like because you have no idea what someone went through to get there, and now I can't unhear it. It's like we like look at these celebrities, we hear stories of like Kevin Hart and stuff, and we're like, oh, look how successful. But then you listen to him talk, and you're like, do you know what that man has gone through to get to this point? Like, sure, you're a millionaire, great, but like, look at his marriages, look at the things he has lost, look and fucked up. Like, look at like, and we're just skimming the surface. We have no idea what these people have gone through. And when I was closing Trade Street, I also talked to a founder, not some founder, a founder of a company, and she had closed her business and she had sold it. And remember, I wanted to sell Trade Street for all this money. And I'm just like, how'd she do this? And I talked to her. And after an hour conversation, she basically was like, I would have never done this. I'd never do it again. I shouldn't have sold my company. I didn't make any money. So yeah, you see online how much I sold it for, but none of it went to me. And she was just basically telling me like all the terrible things she went through trying to sell her company. And, I love talking to her, and I signed up for her newsletter on her website after that. And a day later, I got a newsletter post she had put out. And it's like this like letter she puts out to her fans and her community. And the letter basically said that she's so happy where she's at now, and she's finally moving out of Silicon Valley. And after years of um, all the toughness she went through and wanting to commit suicide, she's finally able to, move out of Silicon Valley and move back home, whatever. And I cried so hard. I don't know this woman, this white woman. I just talked to her on the phone. You know what I mean? But I cried. And I cried because hearing someone say that they have had thoughts of suicide is just so like heartbreaking to me. It's just so heartbreaking. And I remember thinking, look what the fuck she lost in her losing season. She almost lost her life, you know? So who cares what she sold that company for? And who cares where that money went? Like, was all that worth almost losing your life? You know? So
Perspective is crazy. Perspective is crazy
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's never what you think it's going to be, and it could look completely different to somebody else.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you never know when where your inspiration is going to come from. You have zero clue. Like it hits you, and
Mhm.
then you arrive at a point, and that's it. But the moment right there, she became your celebrity. Like the same passion that people follow a celebrity on Instagram with, and they care who they're dating and who got pregnant and who was who where. That
Yep.
lady was your celebrity in that moment. To see her story, to understand her story, to feel that heartache. That's what that was. So to have
Mm,
that moment
mm,
is something that should always be applauded, because everybody doesn't get that moment.
mm.
The life
It's
experience
true.
of everybody is not the same. You can't sign everybody up for the same experience. It's not how it
Mm-mm,
works.
mm-mm.
But when the paths cross, there might be some similarities. Even if you're not from the same walks of life, the similarities can be crazy. And that's where the connection comes from. That's where the appreciation comes from. And I will always applaud those moments um, for forever. Um, if you could go back and talk to 18-year-old Ashley, what would you tell her?
You are doing a good job. You're doing a good job, and just do your best. That for some reason, that little simple phrase has been guiding me for the past couple years. Like whenever I get down on myself, I'm like, you're doing your best. And it just like it really works. Like it's just like you're doing your best. That's all anybody could ever ask for. And my God, like if this is my best, I'm crushing this shit. Do you know? Like if it's not my best, I'm crushing it. Like, so I would just be like, you're doing a good job. Do your best. Just keep your head up. We get so caught up when we're young and like all these things that we feel like are so important, but just do your best and just keep on going. You're doing a great job, baby girl.
That's good to hear. I'm pretty sure she'll take that and run with it, and be
Oh
right
yeah.
here in this moment with the
Yeah.
same smile and comfort. Well,
Yeah.
if you don't have any questions for the host, which rarely happens, so I'm okay, whatever works. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy lady, for coming on the show and giving me the opportunity to expand my platform and to talk about yours. Everybody out there, don't forget to visit Rouse Lighthouse for all your consultant needs and interior design needs. And I will always endorse her as a person. I think one thing that entrepreneurs forget when they first start is that it's about the two P's. It's the person and the product. But if you don't believe in the person, there's no way the product moves. So I'm
That's
telling
right.
you right now that I do believe in the person. So I'm pretty sure the product is good as well. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this therapy session.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.